Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. We are from group 4 and in this video we will explain about derivation and affixation. And this is our group member. For your information, the order of speakers in each subsequent slide will correspond to this order of names.
In this video, we're gonna learn about derivation and affixation that are forming verbs, adjectives, and adverbs. For the first one is forming verbs. Verbs are words that describe what people do, how they feel, and how things are in general. We can make new verbs by adding prefixes and suffixes to words that we already know. Prefixes to form verbs. Prefixes go to the beginning of words. We use prefixes to change the meaning of words, include verbs. For example, Alex decided to rewrite his paper to get a better grade. From right word to the new word that is rewrite. And for the second example is, I think you should disconnect the printer and then reconnect it. That might work. From connect to disconnect. And the most common verb prefixes are re, this, over, the, miss, on, the, and under. And the next is suffixes to form verbs. Suffixes go to the end of word. We use suffixes to change a word, like a noun or an adjective, to a different type of word such as a verb. For example, the butter is very soft because of the heat. So, the butter softens when it is hot. Soft is an adjective and it changes to a verb when we add an. And the most common verb suffixes are is, its, fi, and an.
The most common verb prefixes, there are 8. The first one is re, which has meaning of again. For example, replay. The second is this, which has meaning of reverses the meaning of the verb. For example, disagree. The third is over, which has meaning too much. For example, oversleep. The fourth is the, which has meaning do the opposite of. For example, deselect. The fifth is miss, which has meaning badly or wrongly. For example, mislead. The sixth is un, which has meaning reverses the meaning of the verb. For example, unbend. The seventh is be, which has meaning make or cause. For example, befriend. The eighth is an under, which has meaning cause to be. For example, enrich, undergo. We move to the meaning of suffixes. The first one is eyes, which has meaning cause to be. For example, visualize. The second is fi, which has meaning cause to be. For example, classify. The third is an, which has meaning cause to be. For example, shorten. And the last one is note, inflection, suffix, and derivation. Inflection, hidden, written is verb plus n. Suffix, n. Derivation, sharpen, strengthen is adjective or noun plus n.
Suffixes are letters attached to the end of a word. These endings can change the class of a word. For example, adding a specific ending to a word can change it from a noun to an adjective. A specific group of suffixes called adjective suffixes. turn words into adjective. An adjective is a word that modifies a noun. Adding a suffix to a noun form is one way to form an adjective. A suffix is a part added to the end of a word to mark the word from below. An adjective occurs as 1. The complement to the predicate, or 2. Is the modifier to a noun. The adjective after we describe the noun. The example of adjective suffixes are 1. Is full, have a meaning of having the characteristic of. Example of this is joyful, cheerful, meaningful, and powerful, and wonderful. The second example is less, with meaning of without. Example is homeless, worthless, hopeless, effortless, meaningless, or useless. The third example is all, with meaning of relating to or national, with example are informal, political, seasonal, or criminal. The fourth example is a, have a meaning of having the nature of or caused by. Example of this is are athletic, photographic, basic, scientific, historic, or rhythmic. The next example is why. They have a meaning of characteristic by or tending to. Example of these are rainy, funny, dirty, messy, sleepy, beautifully, brainy, or fruity. And the last example is li, is having meaning of like or every in period. Example of these are daily, monthly, or yearly.
Now I'm going to talk about things called affixes. One of the things that I love about the English language is how flexible its words can be. You can take little word parts and stick them together to make new words. If I read something once, I've read it. If I read it again, now I've reread it. We call them affixes. So, affixes is a set of letters generally added to the beginning or end of a root word or base word to modify its meaning. As you know now, a prefix occurs at the beginning of a word and a suffix at the end. Some common suffixes, as you might see, include if, it adds the meaning tending to, or doing, or being. An example is from the word create to creative. Able is used to form adjectives meaning possible, capable of, suitable for, or causing. An example is from the word access to be accessible. And is used to form a nouns of agency, that is person or things who perform an action. And adjectives that describe a state or quality. An example is from the word ignore to be ignored. And some common prefixes you might see include in, at, an, il, ir. All of these prefixes mean no or opposite of. For example, im, from the verb possible to be impossible. In, from the word sincere to be insincere. Up, from the verb normal to be abnormal. Un, from the word clear to be unclear. Ill, from the word legal to be illegal. And ir, from the word regular to be irregular.
Okay, the next is forming adverb. So, what is a verb? Adverb is a word or phrase that modifies or qualifies an adjective, verb, or other adverb or a word group, expressing a relation of place, time, circumstance, manner, cause, degree, etc. The most common example of an adverb is adding suffixes in the end of the word, and it means in a specific manner. For example, the word slowly. Okay, not for this adjective. For example, it was a hard game. The adverb example, they play very hard to win the game. So, the other adverb example is he hardly won the game. As I said before, in the adverb example, we add suffix "ly" in the end of the word hard. Okay, the next is adverb reverse in form or meaning. Here's 5 examples of adjective and adverb. 1. He is a good runner. The adverb example, he runs well. So we change the word good with word well. 2. The picture is high on the wall. The adverb example, the picture is highly valuable. As I said before, we add "ly" in the end of the word hide. 3. She is a pretty child. An adverb example, she is pretty difficult to understand. 4. He is late to work. The example adverb, he hasn't been working lately. The example adjective, the last one is the distance is short. The adverb example is will be there shortly. Or we can say an adjective describes a noun or pronoun, while an adverb describes a verb or anything apart from a noun or pronoun.
Next is exercise 1. In exercise 1, we are assigned to find words into adjectives, adverbs, and verbs. For adjective, namely careful, endless, central, fatherly, dreamy, and last, famous. For adverb, namely nicely and suddenly. And finally, verb, namely which, rebuild, and rich, and laden.
James, a golfer, was playing around golf the other day when he accidentally hit his ball into a hole of the golfing greens. Unexpectedly, an angry golfer appeared the golfer angrily pushed the ball out of its hole. It made loud complaint. The ball hit it hard on the head. Normally, James has good eyesight. However, he didn't see well this time because his ball didn't land anywhere near the golf green.
The golfer probably had a painful headache. It lay still for a moment and then blinked its eyes. The guilty golfer, James, reached for his ball. "Sorry, little guy," James said. The golfer disappeared quickly into its hole with the ball. So, James left the golfing green without his ball. After this experience, James wore his glasses whenever he played golf. The wise golfer found a new hole to live in.